Hello everyone. Today I am going to discuss about 10 questions of medical surgical nursing with you. So my first question is, a patient is admitted with the painless white hyperkeratotic patches in buccal mucosa is diagnosed as option A is lichen planus, option B is hairy leukoplakia, option C is leukoplakia and option D is erythroplakia. So firstly we should know what is hyperkeratotic patches. It is the thickening of the outer layer over the tongue, and this layer contains the protective protein that is keratin. So option A is lichen planus. Lichen planus is the inflammatory disorder. In this condition, the patches is of purple or red color. Option B is hairy leukoplakia. This can be seen in immunocompromised patients. And in this condition, patches is of hairy. The appearance of the patches is hairy. Option C is leukoplakia. In this condition, color of patches is white and it can be seen in the patient with history of smoking. And option D is erythroplakia. In this condition, the color of the patches is red and can be seen in the history of smoking and tobacco patients. So option C is correct, that is leukoplakia. Next question is, a person with the trigeminal neuralgia is admitted to the hospital. During the assessment of the patient, the nurse should, first option is inspect all the aspects of mouth and teeth. Option 2 is lightly palpate the affected side of the face for edema. Option C is test for the temperature and sensation perception on the face. Option D is ask the patient to describe the factors that initiates an episodes. So firstly we should know what is trigeminal neuralgia. Trigeminal neuralgia is a chronic condition. In this condition, patient may have a severe pain, that is like excruciating pain patient may experience. And trigeminal nerve is the fifth cranial nerve and it is the largest cranial nerve, and it is present at the base of the brain. And why we are the option D is correct, like we should assess the initiating or stimulating factor of the pain. Why we are what kind of factors what kind of the factors contribute to the pain we should know. First is chewing, speaking. At the time of speaking, patient may experience this trigeminal pain, neuralgia pain, or at the time of brushing also, and sometimes in case of any tumor that is compressing the trigeminal nerve. So that is the most important thing, that we should know the initiating factors, because as according to the initiating factors only treatment can be given to the patient, and treatment should be focused to reduce the level of pain. So in order to reduce the level of pain, narcotics can be given or other painkillers can be given. Question number third is, according to American Heart Association guidelines 2017, which condition is known as hypertensive urgency? Option A is if systolic BP is more than 180 mm of Hg, or diastolic is more than 110 mm of Hg. Option B is systolic BP is more than 180 mm of Hg plus target organ damage, or diastolic BP is more than 120 mm of Hg plus target organ damage. Option C is systolic BP is more than 140 or equal to 140 mm of Hg, or diastolic BP is more than or equal to 90 mm of Hg. So option A is correct. In hypertensive urgencies, only BP will be considered. So BP, if systolic BP is more than 180 mm of Hg, or diastolic BP is more than 110 mm of Hg, that is known as hypertensive urgency. And if BP is more than 180, systolic BP is more than 180 mm of Hg, along with that any target organ damage, so like renal failure, in that condition is known as hypertensive emergencies. And if BP, systolic and diastolic BP is more than 140 or equal to this, so that is known as hypertension. So question number 4th is, if a patient is admitted with the diagnosis of cardiac tamponade as a complication of the carditis. This is the suggestive hallmark of Beck's triad. So option A is high blood pressure, jugular vein distension, pericardial rub. Option B is blood pressure, low blood pressure, jugular vein distension, pericardial rub. Option C is high blood pressure, bradycardia, pericardial rub. Option D is low blood pressure, bradycardia or pericardial rub. So option B is correct, that is low blood pressure, jugular vein distension or pericardial rub, because cardiac tamponade is a condition in which fluid is collecting or fluid in a sac around the heart, which is putting pressure, which puts the pressure on heart, like compresses the heart, which leads to decrease the blood pressure, or which will increase the pressure over the jugular vein, or which may lead to the distension of the jugular vein, and it will also not allow the heart to fill with the blood properly. So in Beck's triad, three conditions, this is the hallmark of the Beck's triad, that is low blood pressure, jugular vein distension, and due to the filling of the sac, pericardial rub will also takes place. Question number 5. A person is on inotropes and following are the indications that inotropes are not affected when. Option A is pressure resuscitation is incomplete. Option B is volume resuscitation is complete. Option C is volume resuscitation is incomplete, and option D is pressure resuscitation is overloaded. So in question, what they are asking, they ask that a person is receiving inotropes and when we can say that inotropes are not working properly or inotropes are not affecting properly. The option C is correct, when volume resuscitation is not complete, because why we are giving inotropes in order to increase the contractility of the heart, and in conditions like if patient is having low cardiac output, or in cardiogenic shock, or in any in a person undergoing any cardiac surgery, or during cardiac surgery we may need inotropes, and these inotropes may help in the perfusion, to improve the perfusion of the vital organs. So if the volume is not sufficient, or if we are not able to achieve the target volume, it means these inotropes are not functioning properly, or they are not giving the appropriate result what we are targeting. Option 6, question number 6 is, which pattern of breathing may indicate the presence of pneumothorax? So option first is, option A is slow and regular breathing. Option B is rapid and shallow breathing. Option C is rapid and deep breathing. Option D is slow and deep breathing. So option B is correct, that is rapid and shallow breathing. So firstly we should know what is pneumothorax. Pneumothorax is the air leak into the space, which space, that is the pleural cavity, space between the lungs and chest wall, that is known as pleural cavity. If air leak is present, that is known as pneumothorax, and it may be due to injury, that is blunt injury, may be blunt or it may be penetrating injury to the chest. And symptoms which may arise, like patient may experience chest pain, along with that patient may also experience shortness of breath. And if air enters from outside, like if patient is having open pneumothorax, the patient air will enter from outside, and in case of closed pneumothorax, air will enter from lungs in the pleural space. In both conditions, lungs will collapse and patient may experience shortness of breath. In order to compensate the condition, patient start rapid and shallow breathing, that is known as tachypnea. So option B is correct. Next is question number 7. All are the conditions which may cause decrease in left ventricular contractility. Option A is cardiogenic shock. Option B is myocardial infarction. Option B is myocardial infarction. Option C is Anderson-Tawil syndrome, and option D is ischemic heart disease. So in question they asked which of the condition may decrease the contractility of the which condition will not affect the contractility of the ventricles. So option A, option B and option D will affect the contractility of the heart. Only option C will not affect the contractility of the heart, because in this condition patient may experience periodic paralysis, muscle weakness, or sometimes patient may also experience arrhythmia, or in other than that patient may have developmental and physical abnormalities, but this condition will not cause any effect on the ventricle, on left ventricle, or contractility of the left ventricle. So option C is correct option, that only this condition will not cause any effect on the left ventricle contractility. Now question number 8. As gastric contents move into the small intestine, the bowel is normally protected from the acidity of the gastric content by the option A is inhibition of the secretin release, option B is release of the pancreatic digestive enzymes, option C is release of the bicarbonate by the pancreas, and option D is release of the gastrin by the duodenal mucosa. So pancreatic juices, we know that first one is like digestive juices, or other than that is bicarbonate, and the pancreatic juices, like these juices are synthesized and secreted from exocrine acinar cells, and bicarbonate is secreted from epithelial cell lining of the pancreatic duct. So option C is correct, because the pH of the bicarbonate is 8.4, so it will decrease the acidic factor of the gastric content, and it will protect the lining from the acidic factor of the gastric content. And like option C is correct. Next question is question number 9. A patient with the cirrhosis of liver having a history of portal hypertension, and during physical examination dilated periumbilical collateral veins were found, which is referred as option A is asterixis, option B is caput medusa, option C is migrating thrombophlebitis, and option D is spider angioma. So in this condition asterixis can also seen in the patient with this cirrhosis of liver, caput medusa also seen in these patients, but in this condition, in this question they focus that dilated periumbilical collateral veins, which is also known as caput medusa, because in asterixis tremor hands are there. So we can see these tremor hands in acute liver disease, in renal failure, or in patient with azotemia, means those who are having high nitrogenous content in their blood, or other than that we can see this asterixis in Wilms disease. Next is caput medusa. Caput medusa is the appearance of the distended or engorged superficial epigastric vein, which is mentioned in question also, that caput medusa is the correct option. And next is migrated thrombophlebitis. Migrated thrombophlebitis is a Trousseau syndrome, that is movable clot around the body, like often from one leg to another leg it may move, and it may seen in pancreatic or lung cancers. We can see this. And option D is spider angioma. Spider angioma is this condition which can be seen in patient with the cirrhosis of liver, esophageal varices, in patients with hepatitis B and C. And in this spider web like appearance can be seen over the over the skin of the stomach. So option B is correct, that is caput medusa, like collateral veins can be seen over the abdomen. Next is question number 10. A hospitalized patient with angina complains a nurse that she is having chest pain. A nurse bases her action on the knowledge that option A is will always progress to myocardial infarction. Option B will be relieved by rest or nitroglycerin or both. Option C indicates that irreversible myocardial damage is occurring. Option D is frequently associated with vomiting and extreme fatigue. So option A is not correct, because angina will not always progress to myocardial infarction. It may resolve also. And option B is angina will relieve by providing rest or by giving nitroglycerin, or by using both methods, rest along with nitroglycerin. And option C is incorrect, because angina will not indicate any myocardial damage. And option D is frequently associated. Angina will, it is not always associated with the this vomiting or extreme body fatigue. So option B is correct. If patient is complains of angina or chest pain only, that this pain will relieve by providing rest or by giving nitroglycerin or by providing both. Thank you.